it's now been a couple of days. We've had a little time to calm down, kind of gather our thoughts a little bit. And, you know, now we've got a little perspective here, I suppose. So, Anthony, I'm going to start off with you tonight, man. How are you feeling about the game and the Dolphins moving forward? Now that you've had a little time to digest what happened on Sunday.
I still don't feel wonderfully good about our chances moving forward.
Okay.
I try to keep positive because a negative football season just makes it even worse if your team is doing poorly. And we've sat through a 1-15 season before. I don't need to see that again. I think that the change in quarterback will do us good. I think we're going to talk about it a little bit tonight, maybe a lot of it. I don't know. We'll see what Josh has up his sleeve, but there was a lot of missed passes from Skylar in that game. I'll just leave it at that. It wasn't so much a scheme issue as it was a talent issue, which we could see from a mile away. So I think that's the major concern with the coach, and we'll talk about that a lot today too. I think the coach needs to see those talent deficits, and the fact that he can't is, I think, where most Dolphins fans are having a really big problem today.
Yeah, I agree. I've personally never seen, and I think we brushed on this on Sunday. I've never seen a quarterback with such poor pocket presence, and I lived through Tannehill. I watched Tannehill operate, and his pocket presence just was non-existent. He had no idea when he was good. He had no idea when he was under pressure. It was a mess of a game from Skylar Thompson, and there's no word yet on who's going to start Monday's game.
Nope.
I was kind of hoping we were going to get that tonight.
Which I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another coaching. And a lot of coaches do this, not just Mike. But I hope whoever is starting knows already, and it's just a media thing. Because man, how are you supposed to prepare?
Yeah,
I know they say every player prepares as if they're going to start, but that doesn't work, man. We're all human beings. That's just not a thing.
Yeah, my assumption is that internally they know.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
And the hope is that the reason they're not letting everyone else know is so that they can't game plan.
Yeah. But game plan for Tim Boyle, seems
or Huntley
easier than game planning for. Well, yeah.
I think the game plan for either of them is the same. Put pressure on them, right? They're guys who don't play a lot. I mean,
right, exactly. Stack the box.
All right. Well, Steve, you've had time to digest as well, and we've talked a little bit. How are you feeling after Sunday?
Man, I'm probably the most pessimistic right now about Sunday, because I don't like the way Mike McDaniel is handling this season. Last season, Mike McDaniel was my man crush Monday. This season, I really don't even want to talk to him. Yeah, he's hard to swallow. It's hard to swallow a team with Mike McDaniel coaching it right now. He doesn't change a scheme. He sticks to his guns throughout the whole game. And it really showed in the Seattle game. He has a Tua system offense that he believes Skylar can run, which clearly he's wrong. And he doesn't have a backup change of play calling. He passes it 14 times in a row, like we were talking about, when the run was clearly working. And then when he was passing, we weren't getting it to our playmakers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So it's hard for me to be. I try to look forward, and I have an optimistic view about this coming Monday. But if I'm looking at it in this frame from week 3, it's hard to be happy about the coming game, just with the way he's coaching. And I don't know if he's gonna change. He has to. He has to find a way to change his play calling.
Yeah, I agree. He needs to make some adjustments and adapt a little bit. And I agree. You didn't see a lot of that in the game against Seattle, and that was at least part of the reason, if not, a major part of the reason why we were so inept on offense. So yeah, I understand why you're frustrated with Mike McDaniel right now. I get it.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense to me. All right. Well, Josh, how are you feeling, man? We're starting things off. It seems like none of us have really recovered.
No, I mean, look, I mean, it's hard to recover, right? I mean, that game was atrocious on many levels, right? I will say, having sat through a few all 22 film review sessions myself and digested for a couple days and slowly climbed back off the ledge, if you will. There were some good things that happened in the game that were letdowns due to what Anthony was saying, due to the talent at quarterback, right? I mean, Skylar Thompson crapped the bed on every single chance he could, and then 17 times on Sunday, no pun intended. And, I think Steve was, nail on the head. You know what I mean? I think Mike McDaniel's stubbornness to recognize the talent at the quarterback level was shameful. I mean, that's the only word I can come up with is shameful, because I don't care if Skylar's been in the system for 3 years and Tua's been in the system for 3 years. And yes, Skylar's not Tua and all this other stuff, but he can run the offense. No, he can't. And you should know that. And the fact that you either know it and chose to ignore it, or even worse, didn't recognize it, is troubling. But where I destroyed Mike McDaniel, both internally and externally, about the game plan and the play calling and all, it wasn't as bad as it seemed. There were plenty of plays where the scheme dialed up the right looks. Skylar just didn't see them, or Skylar hesitated and got sacked, or Skylar hesitated and got just drilled and pile drived into the ground. And it just made it look like something wasn't, Mike McDaniel called the wrong play, for example. And, but what was frustrating, and Steve touched on it, we talked about it before the show started, was the inside run game was working, right? I think we had 3 or 4 plays in a row between Achane and Wright that were no less than 8 yards gained per touch. One was called back for holding, but it still worked, right? It was.
I'm going to get to these penalties later in the show.
Exactly. Yes.
Trust me.
And it was a Rob Jones. Okay, cool. It was a Rob Jones penalty. Awesome. Let's chalk one more up to his tally for the season. And then Mike McDaniel decided that it would be a good idea to go away from what was working with a Skylar Thompson quarterback and throw it 13 or 14 times in a row before running it again. And that just is, I don't want to use the word shameful, but it is shameful, and it is hard as fans to digest it. His stubbornness is getting in the way, and he needs to call a simpler game plan, which I think either having Tim Boyle in there, who hasn't been here for 3 years, or having Huntley in there, who hasn't been here for 3 years, is going to almost force Mike McDaniel to call a simpler game plan by the nature of the player not knowing all of the intricacies of all of the shifting that happens, which will let players play, which hopefully will produce a better product on the field.